Hey guys, Twisterduck here, and today we're going to be doing my NASCAR playoff prediction grid. As you can see, the top 16 that have made the playoffs are as listed. I'm sure most of you know by now, so I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to get into who I think is going to move on and who's not through this first round. Okay, so obviously I have Kyle Busch moving on, along with Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, Keselowski, Chase Elliott, Kurt Busch, Eric Jones, and Kyle Larson. I feel like those don't really need any kind of explanation because all of them have been pretty consistent. They all but maybe Jones and Larson have a good amount of playoff points moving forward, so they should all be fine. And Jones and Larson have both been on quite a streak lately, despite their wrecks at Indianapolis last weekend. They've both been extremely good recently, so I think they moved by pretty easily. Now, the two I think might be the surprising ones is William Byron and Alex Bowman, beating out the likes of Ryan Blaney, Clint Boyer, Eric Almirola, and Ryan Newman. The reason I have those two making it and not some of the others is that, first off, Ryan Newman and Clint Boyer barely snuck in to the playoffs as is. Newman's been consistent, but with no playoff points and not really being in that great of equipment compared to every other driver in the field. He's not going to make it through. The fact that that team even made the playoffs is the biggest accomplishment for them. And now with Clint Boyer, again, he's actually been doing quite well as of recently, but the team just has not had consistency that I think that they need, especially to make up the amount of playoff points. But you never know with Kevin Harvick finding some speed in the 4 car. I'm sure that will transfer over to him. And this brings me on to the next point of Eric Almirola. Had zero momentum going into these playoffs. His last top 10 finish was at Daytona all the way back in July. And this team has just struggled. They've had not necessarily cars. They haven't had amazing cars and bad luck, bad pit strategies, just you name it, it's happened, and they don't have any playoff points back them up. I think they're done. Now, the biggest shock may be Ryan Blaney. The reason I'm picking him to go out is he doesn't really have a whole lot of playoff points either, and the Penske cars don't really look as good as they did early on in the season, and he's by far been the weakest of the Penske cars, and just consistency-wise, I'm not sure if it's there. And when you look at William Byron, well, Byron's been really inconsistent. Chad Knaus is his crew chief, and I wouldn't bet against Chad Knaus being able to get William Byron to the round of 12, even with few playoff points. And also, the Hendrick cars have been better. Maybe Penske was playing around. Maybe Ryan Blaney sneaks in instead. I'm not sure. Another reason why Alex Bowman may be in some of these other ones is he has the win, and while he has no momentum either, like Eric Almirola, he does have some speed that he has shown recently. Just some stuff hasn't gone his way, and he also has some playoff points, and I think he will barely get into the round of 12 with those. So moving on to the round of 8, I have the obvious: Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Mark Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, and Brad Keselowski. The two that would probably be iffy is Chase Elliott and Kurt Busch. The reason I have Chase Elliott and Kurt Busch in there over the likes of Jones, Larson, Byron, and Bowman is because they both have more playoff points than those drivers, and the two have been better historically in this part of the playoff systems. Like, you look at Kyle Larson, he's never made it through the round of 12, and going back to his previous finishes earlier this season, I just don't see him moving on again, especially with, once again, some inconsistency this season. William Byron and Alex Bowman did it both. If they both make it to round 12, that's a great job, great season for them, but they don't have the playoff points or I think, teams with the good enough cars to move on. Unless one of them sneaks in and gets a win, I don't see them moving on. Now, Eric Jones was one I almost put in place of Chase Elliott or Kurt Busch, because of how good the Toyotas have been. The only problem is he doesn't have a ton of playoff points, and without much playoff experience for him and his team, that may have a factor in him moving on or not. So I'm going to go with the ones that have had experience in that round of 12 and pick Chase Elliott and Kurt Busch. Now, Championship 4 was fairly straightforward to pick for at least 3 out of 4, and I know some people aren't going to like it, but I'm going to have the 3 JGR cars of Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr. making the Championship 4 because they've all 3 have been great this season, and JGR has something special this season. I mean, they've been good the past season, but this season's like all their cars look really good. And so the fourth person I have making a Championship 4, as you see, is Kevin Harvick. I'm picking Kevin Harvick because he has been in Championship 4 so many times since this playoff format has been introduced, and they seem to be peaking at the right time with him getting multiple wins in just the past few races, and that consistency and experience, I think, will help him get the Championship 4. Now, Logano, Keselowski, Elliott, Kurt Busch, I think all 4 of those teams are just missing something. They don't seem to have whatever it is that the other ones have. And the disclaimer here is that Keselowski, Logano, Elliott, or Kurt Busch could sneak in with the Championship 4 if one of them wins at Martinsville. I don't think any of the cars will be good enough to win at either Texas or ISM compared to the JGR cars, but Martinsville, I think, is a chance for maybe the equipment performance to not matter as much compared to JGR cars as it is for them. So the 2 drivers I think you'd watch out for at Martinsville is maybe Keselowski or Chase Elliott to sneak in, get a win, and move on to Championship 4. If that doesn't happen, then I think Championship 4 is pretty much set. Now, my championship pick is Denny Hamlin. And that may be surprising because of how good Kyle Busch has been all season with his consistency of finishes in the top 10, top 5, and wins. But this year, Denny Hamlin looks different. He looks reminiscent of the year he came so close to winning championship and kind of threw it away and gave it to Jim Johnson. And that team just seems to have something special during this part of the season. They peaked at the right time, and he just seems different this year. And Kyle Busch has been consistent. We consider bad finish Kyle Busch as like 8th, 9th, and 10th, which would be good for some other drivers. But the fact that he hasn't won in several races leading up to the playoffs, and, you know, seen some flaws in their execution as of recently, makes me concerned about how much we've been putting pressure on them to make it Championship 4, because it is very possible that one of JGR cars might not even make a Championship 4 because of the way this playoff format works. I mean, you think about 2 bad races and your points gap is gone. So, I mean, they may not even make it here. But I think that Denny Hamlin has just shown something different this season, and I think he will win his first career championship. That is my predictions, guys. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and if you think that my Championship 4 looks correct, or if you have some other ideas about who might move forward and who moves on, and maybe some surprises that you guys can suggest. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.